For the past 3 years, I've spent over 3,300 hours building one gigantic Minecraft project, recreating the fantasy world from a book I wrote back in college. We've built a lot of stuff. Big beautiful tree city, big beautiful cyberpunk city, big skull. You get it. These are great, but there's a problem. Every city just spreads outward forever. Unlimited space. So today, I'm imposing one massive constraint. This entire city's gotta fit on the back of a turtle. I use a ton of building mods, but the most useful here is called Axiom. For these large shapes, we're going to be using the shape tool. It does exactly what it sounds, drops massive, customizable shapes instantly. But Axiom isn't the only thing helping me out. I'm working with my friend Nighty. This guy is an insane organics builder. His work stands out even among the best. Once the base forms are in, Nighty's going to refine the limbs while I clean up the tail. Then we'll move on to the shell. Since the idea itself isn't exactly original, I've got a plan to make it a little more unique. Today, I'm building a volcano city on the back of a turtle, a lava turtle, with pirates. Okay, it might be a little too unique. Instead of tackling this whole chaotic mess all at once, let's start with just one piece, the lava turtle. Hang on, this is a tortoise. With the basic shapes in place, now we can move on to the shell. Turtles have these plate-like segments on their shells called scutes. You probably know what these are if you play survival. I really want those to stand out here. Luckily, Nighty came up with a super clean way to do it using the shape tool. If we switch the shape tool to shapes like dodecahedrons or isohedrons, separate the axes, and scale each one to fit, they make perfect scutes, or at least base layers. Once we get a size we like, it just comes down to placing and adjusting, like snapping puzzle pieces across the shell. This looks so good. Once the shell was done, Nighty took over the head. While he did that, I took on the scales for the rest of the body. And there's no way I'm placing a million tiny scales by hand. That would take forever. So I need a different approach. To test it, I just chopped off the tail and brought it over here. Now he'll be fine. It'll grow back, right?
I don't think that's a turtle thing, dude.
Ooh, he'll be fine. Probably. For the scales, I'm going to replace the entire tail from stone to black concrete. Then I'll just swap the outer layer out to something bright so I can isolate the surface. From there, I hop into Axiom and use the shatter brush to break it into natural looking plates. Hey, that actually looks pretty good. Now I can apply the same method across the limbs, neck, and underside of the shell. This thing really looks like a Pokemon, which is cool, but it's a little too cartoony. All the scales sit at the same level, so instead of looking like real plates, it looks like he's wearing a bodysuit. So we gotta fix that. I tried a few different tools, but none of them really fix it. So looks like we're gonna have to do this the hard way. Back to the shape tool. Alright, yeah, that looks way better. While I was reworking the scales, Nighty updated the head and eye, leaning into the rocky look and shifting the colors to a magma palette. Removing the pupil helps a lot. It makes it feel way more like a magical construct instead of a creature. And the underside's a little dark, which is usually a problem, but here I think it's actually going to be perfect. I'll go through and run glowing magma cracks through it to push the whole idea that this is almost a walking volcano. Yeah, that looks sick. Now I'll start texturing the shell using some easy edit commands to figure out the shading. For the main palette, I'm going for this reddish tone that almost blends into green. Problem is, getting that balance in game is a little tricky. Every time I try it, the green just completely takes over. So I took the L and just got rid of the green entirely. It was the right call. But now we've got another problem. Right now, the magma looks awesome, but it's so dark that a lot of the shapes just blend together from a distance. So we're gonna go through and start adding brighter highlights along key areas, just to pull those shapes back out. It breaks up that samey look and adds a lot more visual interest. Yeah, that looks awesome. Now it actually feels like a magical lava construct. Oh, I redid the tail spikes too, leaning into more of like a Stegosaurus type look. I think it turned out great. After a full day of fine-tuning, the turtle's done. This thing looks amazing. So, what are we gonna name him? There's still a lot more work to do on Quentin, but at this point, I'm slowing down a lot. So I'm gonna step away for a bit to work on the next part, the Undercity. Because this civilization isn't just gonna live on top of the golem, it's also going to live inside of it. First things first, we gotta disembowel this poor turtle. Now, hollowing this thing out is going to be easier said than done. There are a ton of weird air pockets inside from all the shaping and texturing, and if I try to hollow it out like this, it's going to break a lot of stuff. So first, I'm going to have to go through and fill all those gaps. Once that's done, grab a chunk of the main body, run the hollow command, and wait for a while. You guys probably don't get this, but these commands take forever at this scale. But hey, it worked. Now I can start terraforming. And just a reminder, don't freak out guys, this is a golem, not a living creature. This does not hurt it. He's made of rocks. I don't want anything affecting the outside, so I'm gonna create a buffer layer. Still doesn't feel like a cave yet though, so let's shape it. I want this place to feel like a dwarven city. I'm picturing a river of magma running through it. Once the main river's in place, I'll go in with Axiom's elevation tool to shape the terrain. This thing is super useful. I covered it more in the last video, but here's the short version. I can import height maps as brushes and use them to push and pull terrain into whatever shape I want. Alright, that didn't take too long, but now we've got a problem. I've made a lot of caves before. The biggest issue is always lighting. I mean, obviously. It's really hard to make it look good and consistent. So this time, I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna add magic circles across the ceiling, acting as spells that regulate heat and give us a solid light source. So let's go build them. First, I'll sketch out the circle sizes I want in the cave, then I'll step outside of the terrain and build them separately. These magical runes are going to be what power the golem. They solve the lighting problem, but more importantly, they also act as a circulatory system, cycling heat and air out of the city and venting it into the environment. Whenever a warm front rolls across the mainland, people know Pyrelis is coming. Okay, these are looking awesome. And it only took a few hours. Not bad. Now that they're done, I'll paste them into the ceiling, swap the snow blocks to stained glass, and wrap them in light blocks to give them that glow. Nice. Still, it's pretty dark in here. Didn't really fix the lighting issue. I don't want to just spam a bajillion of these everywhere and hope it fixes it, but I think I got an idea. The circles already regulate heat, but they also release excess magical energy. And that energy shows up as light. It spreads across the ceiling like a glowing night sky. I love using the because magic explanation. For the sky, I'm going to use a tool called Go Paint. Here's how it works. I grab a feather, left click, and this menu pops up. I'll enable the brush, set it to gradient mode, drop my palette in, and I'm ready to go. Now, I can just paint across the surface while still getting that nice dithered effect. Once the glass is all done, I'm gonna move on to the light layer. To get this thing all textured, I'll hop into Axiom, grab the gradient painter, and set up a palette of light blocks ranging from level 1 to level 14. Then paint across the cavern to build that horizon glow. Nice, that's looking pretty good. And this part actually started by accident. I dropped in some brighter spots using the shape tool, and it actually created this really cool aurora effect. So I'm gonna lean into it. I'll use the shatter tool to break it up into these fractured glowing streaks. Now, I'll run an easy edits command to really quickly establish the base texture on the concrete layer. Then I'll go back in and add some green accents to push that aurora vibe a bit further. I'm also going to tweak the lighting along the cracks so the sky isn't so noisy. Yeah, that looks awesome. After all that, because I'm super nitpicky, I'll do some more terraforming, then move on to texturing the lava. I could use normal Minecraft lava, but it's pretty one note. I can make this look way more realistic. I'll sketch the shapes with coal blocks, texture the upper glass layer with honey blocks and red and orange stained glass, then add magma underneath for more depth. Let's move on to the terrain. Similar to the shell, I want a bloom effect coming off of the lava. So I'll build a palette from black to orange to yellow, and run an easy edits block light command. This command reads emissive blocks like magma and shroom lights and uses them to place the brightest parts of the palette. It's super useful. That looks really good. Next, I'll run an ambient texture over the rest of the stone. Then spend some time blending everything together. Alright, this turned out way better than I expected. I'm really glad I went with a night sky idea. It just works. Makes me think of Starry Night. With the cave done, it's time to start adding in buildings. But I want these to feel different from what's on the surface. Even though Pyrelis is a nomadic city, its main territory sits here in the Lorden Isles. It's basically the counterpart to Suijin City. Suijin City is home to the water and air near, humans who have adapted to those environments. But what we're building here is home to the earth and fire near, and they're very different. Earth near are shorter, stockier, and built for underground living. They're strong, durable, and incredibly skilled with alchemy, turning lead into gold, all that good stuff. But their most unique ability is they can shape minerals into magical constructs. In other words, golems. And that's what this place is going to be, the Golem Foundry. Alright, I think I've got the base shape in place, but we're far from finished. If this were a painting, we basically just have the canvas now. Alright, let's move on to detailing. This is pretty unfamiliar to me. It's really different from what I usually build. But this place is meant to feel like a mix of cultures, with the fire and earth near each bringing their own architectural style. Even if it's unfamiliar, making this distinct is going to go a long way. Alright, I'm about halfway through, but yeah, this is taking forever. I think part of the problem is the palette. Working with mostly grays makes it really hard to keep things interesting. I want this to feel almost metallic, but using iron blocks isn't going to cut it. So instead, I've got to mimic how real metal behaves. Well, what does that mean? Well, metal reflects light, so I start building in highlights across each piece to sell that effect. Even with a wide range of grays, I've got to keep switching up palettes and block choices. Otherwise, everything just blends together. So I'll start pulling in less obvious blocks, like furnaces, pistons, observers, stuff you wouldn't normally think of for texturing. It slows me down a lot, but I'm being really intentional here. And honestly, I think I'm getting better because of it. Now I'll just keep moving and finish up the left side. We're gonna speed it up a little bit. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now all we gotta do is the center. And this is where everything is going to start coming together. Instead of adding even more gray, I'm making the center this vibrant, glowing orange. Like the whole thing is lit from a forge. Do those rhyme? No, that's nothing. Nah. These guys are basically dwarves, so the forge aesthetic fits perfectly. And it also helps separate the two sides. You can actually read what's going on here. More time lapse. Just a little bit more up top, a few final touches, and then it's done. Well, kinda. I mean, I've been treating this whole thing like a painting, and from this angle, I think it works really well. But if I step off to the side... Oh. Yeah, it's definitely still a facade. Don't worry, we're about to go build out the rest. I just really wanted to lock in the hero angle first. First things first, I'll run a quick flip command to copy the front over to the back. Perfect. But the sides can't just be flat walls when the front's so detailed, so I'll start pulling over pieces that I've already made, tweaking them a bit, and using them to fill in the empty space. And no, it's not laziness, it's called being resourceful. My mom told me that. Now I just need to go through and fill in all the blank spots. Gotta be thorough here. Alright, sweet. That didn't take long at all. But we're not done yet. I gotta get this thing prepped for an interior, and it starts with the hollow command. Hollow does exactly what it says. It hollows out all the contiguous blocks in the selection. But if I include non-full blocks like stairs and slabs, it treats those as the outer layer, and leaves a bunch of holes. So first, I'll copy all the full blocks from the original build and paste them down. Then I'll select the area and run a hollow command. I'll go back to the original build, copy all the non-full blocks, and paste them back onto the hollowed version. There we go. Now let's head inside and see how bad it... Oh. Yeah, this is a huge mess, but this is how they look, normally. Next up, I'll go through the entire interior, smoothing out all the jagged edges into clean, usable walls. It's essential, but it's something I don't really show that much. It's not super exciting, and there's not a lot to say, but it's part of the process. Just know that there's a lot more going into these projects than what you see on screen. Even after clearing everything up from the hollow command, this still doesn't look like a dwarven fortress. So before I add any fun stuff, I gotta make these walls actually feel like walls. This is one of my favorite techniques. Since I'm in creative mode, I can tweak block states. If I extend a wall out to one side and turn its up state to false, boom. Do you see that? It's a little subtle, but look closer. It perfectly covers half of a block. It's literally a vertical slab. And with that, I can build a wall pattern that actually looks like bricks. Now I'll just take that design and run it across the rest of the walls. Okay, that took an entire morning, but that's already way cleaner. It is a little repetitive, so I'm gonna have to go back in and add some variation to break it up. Alright, that's looking pretty solid. I mean, up there. Down here, nah, not so much. Yeah, I definitely spent way too long on this floor, but these kinds of intricate patterns really sell that dwarven aesthetic. Once that's done, I'll run a few easy edit passes to add a little bit of variation. Alright, setup's finally done. Now the fun part, decorating. The best way to figure out what goes in here is to think about the process of how a golem is actually made. So I came up with a plan. I'm not going to break all of this down right now, but this is the roadmap. The first station is called the Stone Procurement Station. Wow, that's a mouthful. It's going to go over here in the corner, right above one of the turtle's legs, and that positioning is actually important. Molzaros, i.e. Quentin, is constantly losing material to erosion, so it needs a way to replenish itself. On the bottoms of its feet, there's these superheated magma pads that melt and absorb the ground as it walks. That material then gets pulled up through the body, solidifies, and ends up here at the collection point. It's just going to float in place until it moves on to the next stage. Next up is analysis. Here, the raw material gets broken down and studied, checking its material composition, magical affinity, and overall usefulness. Since Molzaros is always moving, it's pulling in materials from all kinds of different regions, so this step is crucial. After being analyzed, everything gets sorted into 4 categories. From there, each type gets sent off to its respective refinement station. If the materials aren't magical or valuable, they'll get sent straight to the smelter. Here, they're recycled back into Molzaros' body, helping offset the erosion that happens as it moves. If the materials are valuable, like gemstones, they go to the refinery. I don't really know much about gem cutting, so I watched a How It's Made clip to get a rough idea of the process. Honestly, it helped a lot. First, they carefully extract the gems using a specialized drill with a magically enhanced tip. Then, the excess sediment gets washed away. But there's moisture still trapped inside the rock, which makes it brittle. So after that, the gems go through a series of ovens. Once they're out, the gems get dipped in resin, making the gem a lot more stable. After about 3 cycles, the gems are ready to be shaped. They're cut on a lathe, or in Minecraft terms, a grindstone. They're stored here before being sent off to the treasuries. If the material's magical but not valuable, it's going to become the body of the golem. The magical rocks get sent here, the Bodystone Inscription Station. Even though these aren't as valuable as the cores, they still need to carry magical energy. So here, they're inscribed with runes that allow that energy to flow throughout the entire golem. It's basically magical wiring. Once the main workstations are done, I'll add in some final lighting and ceiling details. Then my buddy JP is going to go through and add in some final decorations. And done. I think this one turned out really well. But this process is a little cruder than the next station, the one where the actual golem cores get inscribed. If the gems are magical, they'll be sent off to become golem cores. So, on the other side of the foundry, we've got the core inscription station. This is where the magical gems from downstairs get turned into actual golem cores. This process is way more delicate. Carving runes into them takes the same level of precision as, soldering a circuit board. One mistake and the whole thing's ruined. So instead of carving by hand, they use highly controlled magical engraving. Okay, this one's a little harder to visualize, but I got the basic layout in place. Still feels a little empty though. So I'll need to go through and build a few custom assets to fill it out. First up, gemstone workbenches. These are going to show up all over the city, but they're essential here. What the heck. While I'm at it, let's throw together a quick brazier design. There's probably a reason they need a fire here, right? Some kind of ritual, surely. Okay, I didn't think that far ahead, but fire. Then I'll just bring in some bookshelves and extra workstation pieces that my friend Rail lets me use. Alright, that's looking pretty good. We've got all the materials, all the workstations. Now all that's left is to actually assemble a golem. So the assembly station is going to be right here. But we don't actually have a golem, so I'm going to need to make one myself. The Nier of Hyrelis are some of the best golem crafters in the world. They've got entire categories of golems, each built for a specific role. To build these, I'm going to be teaming up with Nighty again. We're going to start with something simple, the Gate Warden Golem. These are defense units, built to act as sentries and gatekeepers, and their main ability is embedding themselves directly into structures. When they're inactive, they just look like they're part of the architecture, which makes them perfect for ambushes. Yeah, this looks great. I spent most of my time on the legs, and I'm really happy how those turned out. For our first attempt, this guy is awesome, although he's not exactly small. Alright, he might be a little too big. We'll scale it down for the next one. These are the Ancestral Wardens, sacred guardians of tombs and record halls. They're towering, silent stone knights, often carrying massive memorial shields. Alright, yeah, this looks great. Probably my favorite one so far. We really pushed the detail here, and it paid off big time. But there's a problem. He doesn't really look like he's made of stone. More like, I don't know, a battle bot, or one of those animated robots from Sunday Night Football. Also, I hate to say it, but it's still pretty big. I want these to actually fit inside the city. So, next we're gonna go smaller. This is the Emberkin Golem, built to work around the forges. Like Molzaros, magma constantly flows through its body, giving it the dexterity for intricate smithing. I think it turned out pretty solid. We're gonna make a few more, but I'll speed things up so we're not here all day. Stonerite Golems are your builders. They're the backbone of any outpost. Gearborn Golems are the utility units, the Swiss Army knives, that can write, repair, build, even fight if needed. Because of their versatility, they're among the most common type sent out with crews. Siege Sentinels, they're built for one thing, combat. Big, fast, powerful, and they can fire ranged attacks straight out from their core. Basically, they're a walking cannon. Okay, yeah, not all of these are gonna fit in the city, but honestly, I was just kinda having fun building with 90. Plus, lining them up like this, I don't know, kinda feels like a Pokemon box. But we can definitely use at least one of these. I think I want this one. I'm gonna take the Gearborn Golem, rip off one of its arms, and start turning it into an in-progress build. I'll add some holograms outlining missing limbs, hollow out the torso, and leave the core exposed so you can actually see how it all works. Little details like that go a long way for storytelling. Yeah, this is looking really cool. Way better than I expected. Only problem is, I have no idea how they're gonna get something this big out of here. Maybe the floor opens up and just drops them out? Yeah, we'll go with that. Alright, let's get the rest of the space decked out. A sliding winch system runs across the ceiling, with cables suspending the arm in place. They might not all be necessary, but thinking through how this space actually functions helps a ton with filling it out. Now I'll go through and light up the main area. There's only so much I can do to hide the lighting, but I think this should be enough. Alright, all the main pieces are in, but there's still a lot of empty space. So I'll start building a few extra assets. Smaller golems, some crane setups holding something magical and fiery, plus a bunch of reused assets from my existing library. Alright, let's fill out the space. Wow, that took a ton of work, but taking the time to really think it through made a huge difference. I'm honestly really happy with how this turned out. Alright, one down, only a bajillion more to go. Great. After pasting in the foundry, I'll add in a couple bridges to better integrate it. Now that it's in, there's still a ton of empty space. You don't get a city with just one capital building. We're gonna have to make some more. But we're not gonna start from scratch. We've got a full golem factory here, and I'm gonna use it. The foundry's gonna define the entire style of the underground city. So I'll just start breaking it apart into pieces. I don't need everything, but this is gonna be super useful. Now we'll just organize everything into groups and line it all up into a perfect grid. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Does he really need to line them up this perfectly? Yes, I do. I don't actually need to, but I like it. It makes me happy. Last step, I'll go through and clean everything up. And there we go, not bad at all. Now we'll just load them into Axiom and save everything as blueprints so we can actually start building the city. I've got all these assets ready, but turning them into buildings, I've done it so many times. Like, do you guys even know how many houses I've built over the years? Thousands, probably. At least it feels like thousands. Probably thousands, yeah. So instead of doing the same thing again, I'm gonna mix it up, just for my own sanity. Indulge me, guys. I'm gonna sort all of the assets from this build into 5 categories: towers, walls, pillars, arches, and general decor. Then I'll go into a Google Sheet, line them all up into columns, and let a random number generator pick from each one. Boom, just like that. My job is to take that random set and turn it into something that actually works. I don't have to use everything, but these limitations force me to think differently. Alright, these are turning out pretty solid. But yeah, I think I'm gonna be done with the randomizer. It was a fun experiment, but it's slowing me down a bit too much. Now I've got to be careful not to go too big with these. There's limited space in the cave, and the last thing I want is a bunch of awesome buildings that don't fit anywhere. So these towers are going to be the largest structures. Once they're in, I'll go back later and fill the gaps with smaller houses. Alright, I think I've got a solid set of towers to work with. I really like this big one here. It almost looks metallic. Actually, before I start placing these, I'm going to build an interior for one. The people of Pyrelis are basically a massive collective of pirates. Their main source of income? Raiding ships, hitting ports. And when you raid, you get loot. And when you get loot, you need somewhere to put it. The Living Treasury is a fortified tower made of tiered stone vaults, where wealth is stored directly in the walls. Ingots, artifacts, raw materials, all embedded directly into the structure itself. Once the walls are in place, I'll split the tower into 3 levels: security, the general vault, and the high security vault. Starting at the bottom, level 1 is mostly security, basically a bank lobby. This area is packed with defenses, and this is going to take a little bit of imagination, but I'll hide headless pistons in the walls as traps hooked up to pressure plates. Step on the wrong spot, and you get blasted with streams of white-hot magma. There are still some valuables here, but nothing too important. Up on level 2 is where most of the wealth is stored. There's a lot just sitting out in the open, but if you look closer, you'll see it's actually being absorbed into the structure. I use tough blocks to make it feel like the building is slowly consuming the loot. Anything out in the open like this is a recent deposit, but eventually it all gets pulled into the walls. If you want to make a withdrawal, you've got to put in a request 2 weeks in advance, so the bank can, regurgitate it. For the top level, I was running out of ideas, so I brought in Rail. I'm so glad I did. His idea is great. This is where the Founder's Hammer is kept. According to legend, it was used to forge the very first Molzaros core, the Helmstone. It's still active and has grown alongside the golem itself. Alright, that's looking pretty solid, and I'm super glad I got Rail involved on this one. Sometimes a fresh perspective just speeds things up. Alright, with that done, let's start placing these towers. Yeah, just like I expected, there's not enough small builds. I placed everything that fits, but there's no way I can fill this lower area with just towers. It would completely block the view. So, time to switch gears and start making smaller houses. For these next houses, I'm using the same approach as the Foundry, treating it like a painting. But I'm running into a pretty big problem. Think about Dwarven architecture. What's coming to mind? Yeah, probably massive fortresses carved into mountains, right? Towers, strongholds. But have you ever seen a Dwarven house? Yeah, me neither. That's the issue. Dwarven architecture is one of those styles that you recognize instantly, but it's weirdly hard to describe. The closest comparison I can think of is a medieval version of brutalism. Brutalism is all about simple, heavy forms. The house I'm working on right now is a perfect example. Super simple shape, but that simplicity lets me focus on texture and composition, equally important parts of the build. I don't want the whole city stuck in the same gray palette, so I'll start mixing in more color. Subtle blues, whites, just enough to break things up. On its own, this build might not scream Dwarven, but surrounded by everything else, it fits. This isn't a style that I naturally gravitate toward. If I wasn't trying to improve, I probably wouldn't touch it. But I'm learning a ton, especially with block usage. I mean, look at this thing. There's so many blocks here I wouldn't have even considered a few months ago. And just like that, we've got a solid library of houses. And as I've built, the houses have gradually scaled up. And now we're here at the end, so I'm gonna finish things off with the biggest one yet. And this one's important. It's actually gonna have an interior. The core resonance chamber is a sacred industrial space where Mos-Ros's internal heat and vibrations are monitored, which probably means nothing to you. So just think of this building as the control bridge for the entire city. It's going to be separated into 3 levels. Level 1's where all the core systems are monitored. The walls are covered in glowing runes that act as receivers, pulling in diagnostic data from the Helmstone. The data gets processed through this massive golem core, basically acting like a control hub. This floor is critical for detecting issues early. But this building isn't just an engine room, it's also a lab. The second level is the Lithic Research Gallery, where geomancers study magical stone. This is where they develop better runes, improve golem cognition, and refine the systems that keep everything running smoothly. I added in some research tanks to hold and study magical materials, along with a few basic lab setups. But this kind of detailing, it's not really my strong suit, so I'll hand it off to JP to finish. The top level is the Tectonic Simulator. This area is designed to simulate earthquakes, structural stress, and catastrophic events. Basically, they're stress testing Mos-Ros in real time. At the center is a huge circular simulation pad, and above it is a miniature version of Mos-Ros that's fully functional. And yes, I understand it does look like he's being sacrificed to an ancient ritual, but it's fine. He's treated very well and gets plenty of rocks. I assume he eats them. JP added in some finishing touches like lab equipment and monitoring stands. You know, stuff that makes the space feel full. Hey, this turned out great. It's a weird space to build in, but I think we made it work. JP also crushed the finishing touches. Those small details make a huge difference in selling the story. Now that these are done, we still don't have nearly enough houses. So I'm gonna start remixing all of these base designs into a whole town. After building a few more and extracting assets, I'm running into a pretty big problem. Small houses don't really give you too much to work with. Normally, I'll build big structures and just rip pieces out to turn into smaller builds. But at this scale, that strategy kind of falls apart. Maybe I can pull from some of the old Meyerwood houses I built. These little guys. These should still fit, even if they're not strictly dwarven. This is a pirate civilization too, so that rough, worn down style actually works really well. Man, I am getting tired of building tiny huts. Oh, God. But even if it's tough, I need to push through and get enough to fill things out. Back to work. All right, I think we got enough here. Let's start pacing them in. This isn't a foreign concept to me. I know how to do this. But as usual, I decided to make it harder on myself because placing these is a freaking nightmare. If I go too low, it clips through the outer shell, too high, and I block important sightlines. Every single placement has to be perfect. Oh, it's just so freaking frustrating. After a full day of pasting, it's starting to come together. I had to tweak a lot of the builds to make them fit, but it's filling out nicely. All right, one last push. Let's start filling the lower sections with the small houses. All right, houses are in, but now I've got a ton of cleanup to do. A lot of these builds are clipping into the terrain. You see, it does not look good. It's pretty boring work, so I'll spare you the details and just skip to the end. One sec. Smash cut. All right, cleanup's done. Now I've got a solid foundation, but the outdoor spaces still need to be built out. And to start, we need roads. Okay, before you panic, these are not gonna stay as endstone. This is just a placeholder. It's bright, it's ugly, and that's exactly why I want to use it. It makes it super easy to see where the paths are placed, so I don't miss anything later. Ah, perfect. This looks terrible. exactly what I wanted. Now let's make it actually look good. These rows need to feel dwarven, sturdy, practical, intentional. So they'll turn into plazas, intersections, gathering points. Each of these small details adds just a little bit more life. Just like the foundry floor, these paths are going to use intricate stonework. To get that look, I'll start adding stairs everywhere to create depth. It'd be a nightmare to build in survival, but in modded creative, I've got the perfect tool to help. Axiom, one of my main tools, has a bunch of built-in builder features. Among them is something called the Tinker tool. When I enable it, I can modify block states directly. I'll just have nothing in my hand, then right-click a block, and it turns into a stair. Think of it as 8 cubes, and you're just modifying which cube is where. It's kinda like Chisel and Bits, but limited to actual vanilla block states, which honestly is still pretty insane. Whew, feels good to get rid of that stupid placeholder. Yuck. I hate Endstone. It's the worst. Alright, layout's in place. But this still feels empty. Walking through here right now almost feels like we're going through an abandoned theme park. And that's not what this is. It's a city. So let's fix that. Thankfully, I've got a bunch of old street deco assets that I can reuse. Storage, workbenches, stuff like that. But I always try to mix in new designs for each project. Keeps everything feeling fresh. This is a great opportunity to add more storage. We've got new shelf blocks, and we've got way more options. Here's what I mean. I'll line up a few shelves, drop a grindstone in the middle, and boom, that looks like a little latch. It's a simple trick, but it works. Since this is a port city, I'll also add hanging nets filled with supplies. It adds a lot to the overhead detail. But we also have to think about the living situation here. If Pyrelis is traveling, they're not always over fresh water, so they need a way to collect and filter it. Rain barrels solve both problems. I even added a little filter system on the side. See? We've got the dirty water coming in, it swirls around with geomancy, and boom. This is lame, isn't it? I'm also going to build a few market stalls to fill larger open areas. You know, little pop-up markets. These guys are raiders, so they're bringing in goods from everywhere. Trade should feel busy. I love adding tiny details like message boards. Stuff that makes the city feel real. Normally, we can't do custom blocks, but we kinda can. Using map art, I can design graphics, convert them into pixel maps, and then place them in item frames. It's a bit of a pain, but it adds so much character. Alright, I think we've got enough to get going. Let's go paste them in. I'll start by building a main entrance into the Undercity. There'll be other ways in, but this is the primary one. And no, this is not his butt. It's above his butt. I know you guys are gonna say it in the comments, but no, above his butt. His tail's right there. Once that's done, I'll move over to the southern plaza over here. Here, I'll add a few new dwarven style braziers. Along the main road, I'm going to start dropping in some smaller details. Workbenches, chests, fireplaces, nothing crazy. Some of these are literally just single blocks, but all those little touches add up fast. Right outside the Golem boundary is the busiest area in the Undercity, the Northwest Bazaar. At the center, I'm going to add a small tavern/cafe, kind of a hub for the whole space. I'll branch out from there with market stalls, shops, little seating areas, and let's also throw in some storage piles and overhead clotheslines to fill things out. Once that's done, I can start working through all the side paths and little corners. But this is where it gets pretty tough. Trying to figure out what to put in every random empty space, it's a lot. So I came up with a system. I'll just build small clusters of crates and storage, just messy little blobs of assets. Then I can save them as schematics and load them into Axiom Stamp Brush. Now I can just click and it randomly places those clusters around the area. And if I turn on gravity, it even snaps them to the ground. I mean, it's not perfect, I still have to go back and clean things up, but it gives me a solid starting point for all those awkward empty spots. I'll add one more smaller market in this alley, clean up some of the side roads, throw in a bit more detail around the entrance, and done. Wow, that actually came together way faster than I expected. Nice. And with that, the Undercity is complete. Let's step back and take a look. Normally, this is where I thank everyone, roll some cinematic shots, and end the video super abruptly. But we are not done. Not even close. This is only half. And no, this isn't part 1 of a series. It's stupid. Look at the timestamp. We still got a whole second city to build up top. If I make you wait this long for a video, I'm gonna freaking deliver. This is a 2-for-1 special. If the Undercity covers the Earth near, then we've only hit half the population. All Earth, no fire. The city on top of the shell is home to the fire near. Pirates. Flying around in advanced airships, raiding whatever they can find. They're a lot rowdier than the folks below. Since these two are completely different cultures, the upper city needs a totally different style. Up here, we're gonna make a medieval shantytown type Tudor. Little steampunk, a lot of pirate. Now, the shell is not exactly easy to build on. It's curved in every direction, which makes placing structured builds kind of a nightmare. So instead of fighting the terrain, I'm gonna build one large structure first off to the side. This build is going to act as the foundation for everything else in the upper city. Once it's done, I'll break it apart into assets, just like I did with the Golem Foundry. I don't think I'm alone when I say this, timber frame Tudor is my favorite style to build in. It's super popular, and for good reason. Minecraft blocks just work for this style. After all that dwarven stuff, I don't know, this feels like coming home. Even though I'm comfortable here, I don't want to get complacent. This style's so common that it's easy for builds to just start blending together. So I want to push this one further, make it more refined, a step above what I've done before. For example, the roofs. Getting clean, smooth lines at these angles is hard, but my friend Benji has a great video on circles that helped a ton. This will let me build cleaner angles by using some unconventional blocks like glass panes to pull it off. It's a little intimidating using glass panes to shape a roof. I didn't know if it would look weird or not, but the result, totally worth it. Make sure you guys go check out Benji's video. You'll learn a lot. I also want to push the composition here, making sure everything is spaced just right, so from the main angle, the builds actually complement each other instead of clashing. That means a lot of repositioning. Is it absolutely necessary for this build? Probably not, but it keeps me engaged. After the Undercity, I know just how easy it is to burn out building house after house. Alright, I'm happy with how that shape turned out. Now it's time to start detailing. Even though this is my favorite style, it's been a while since I've used it in a video. I'm always trying to push into new styles. Stuff that's uncomfortable or unfamiliar. That's how you grow as a builder. Coming back to this, I don't want to fall back into old habits. What I don't want is for these builds to look like my older work. They were fine at the time, but if I built something like that now, I'd be pretty disappointed. One big thing I've noticed, depth. I used to go really heavy on it, and now I don't love it. It clutters the build, breaks the visual flow, and makes things feel a bit cartoony. But there's also a practical reason. This whole structure is gonna get broken down into assets. If I go too crazy with depth, none of those pieces are gonna fit together cleanly. Instead, I'm aiming for something cleaner. Walls that feel detailed, but controlled. So, how do you make a flat wall interesting? Well, for me, it's about limiting everything to a 1 block depth range. Full blocks are the maximum, but there's tons of partial blocks that can do the same job without adding bulk. Instead of using full blocks for timber framing, I'll swap them out for signs and debugged fences. Limiting depth doesn't mean losing detail. I'll just have to get a little smarter with it. For example, if I want a smaller frame section, I'll use a darker block as the base, then layer a pale oak sign on top. It's a simple trick, but it creates detail through contrast instead of bulk. Or I can take it even further, stacking pale oak logs side by side to create tighter framing details. While I'm working on this, I'll bring in my friend Cfro to help detail the right side. Even when I'm comfortable in a style, collaborating always helps. Cfro handled a bunch of wooden structures on this side, adding some really nice sign detailing and this awesome chimney. But I gotta get the rest of the detailing done myself. I don't have the interior fully mapped out for this yet, but there's one thing I know I want. The Boiling Barrel. Every pirate city needs a tavern, and yeah, I know. Ooh, Shovel, wow, a tavern in a pirate city. Groundbreaking. But this isn't just any tavern. Multiple levels, a full kitchen, brewery, the works. It won't take up the entire structure, but it's gonna be a big part of it. And seriously, huge thanks to the commenters who helped shape this project. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. This entire city wasn't even part of my original story. A ton of the lore, designs, and ideas in this world started as viewer comments. So if you've got ideas for cities, creatures, factions, lore, anything, leave them down below, because there's a very real chance your comment ends up becoming part of this world. Alright, this is really coming together. It's basically done. Okay, not quite, but to be fair, that is intentional. The hard part's making sure it looks good from the main viewing angle, which is right here. I keep my alt account shovel cam parked at that angle on a second monitor at all times. Every block I place, I'm checking it, because it matters that much. But now that the front looks solid, I can speed things up and finish the rest. The pressure's off, mostly. Okay, it's not completely off, I still need this to look good, but since I spent so much time on the front, I can reuse a lot of those details. Flip them around, adapt them a bit, and suddenly the whole structure fills out pretty quickly. If you want to explore these builds for yourself, I do give out world downloads over on my Patreon. I know paywalls can be kinda lame, but Patreon support is the main reason I'm able to make giant projects like this in the first place. I try to make it worth it too. Even if you just join once, grab the downloads and dip again, the support still means a ton to me. And to all my current and past patrons, seriously, thank you. Alright, from start to finish, the Cloud Cradle took me about a week, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's a huge step up. But now that the exterior is done, it's time to head inside and build the Mega Tavern. The Boiling Barrel is the main social hub for Pyrelis. It's also the oldest building in the city, because of course it is. A pirate's first priority is access to rum. The tavern is going to be split across 4 levels: the main tap room, a dining area, a kitchen/brewery, and a storage and delivery hangar. Starting on level 1, we've got the main tap room. Because of how hectic the exterior is, the layout here is weird. There's lots of awkward corners and tight spaces. But instead of covering those up, I'm gonna lean into them. This whole place should feel chaotic, layered, messy, lived in. The staircases aren't gonna be clean or logical. They're patched together over time. Balconies added wherever there's space, walkways that probably shouldn't exist, lots of fancy duct tape, you know? Yeah, they definitely don't have OSHA here. That's canon. Once I finished the layout, Rail jumped in for a final decoration pass. Yeah, as always, he absolutely nailed it. The place feels full, busy, and alive. Also, based on how many copper golems he added, I think he's a fan of the new blocks too. Heading upstairs, level 2's a lot smaller. This is more for locals and regulars. There's still a bar, but it leans more toward a restaurant than a full-on tavern. Off to the side, I'm gonna add a dedicated dining area with booths. After laying out the booths and adding some base decoration, I brought in Rail. And he had opinions.
What's this supposed to be?
A booth?
I am so disappointed in you right now.
After absolutely roasting me, he showed me how to do it properly. Yeah, he's a pro. There's a reason I bring him in. His interiors always feel alive in a way that mine just don't. I mean, I could probably get better, but interiors, yuck. Next level up, we've got the kitchen and brewery. This is what makes the Boiling Barrel famous. Even though this place is full of rough pirates, the chefs and brewers here are world class, like Michelin star level, if that existed here. Then I'll start building out the cooking stations. Rows of stoves, prep areas, furnaces, everything that you'd need to run a full-scale kitchen. And since this is a tavern, we need drinks. Lots of them. So off to the side, I'll add a few massive brewing setups. Barrels, tanks, whatever these are. I don't know what their name is, they make beer. Sure, some supplies come from raiding or trade, but with this kind of demand, they've got to produce a ton of it themselves. Above the kitchen, there's an opening up to the stockroom. In this central opening, I'll add a big, semi-safe dumbwaiter to move supplies up and down quickly. Then I'll open up the back wall of the stockroom and add a large hangar door. Most shipments come in via airships, so having a proper receiving area, it just makes sense. Rail did a final decor pass of all 3 layers, and then we were ready to wrap up this interior. Alright, and with that level finished, the build is done. I'm super happy with how it turned out. It doesn't feel like a typical tavern anymore, which is exactly what I wanted. Alright, now that the main style's locked in, it's time to break this whole thing down into assets. But this time, I'm going to take it a step further. Back when I first started building in this style, I always had this idea. What if I had a full library of modular Tudor pieces? Walls, windows, roofs, all designed to snap together instantly. At the time, tools like Axiom didn't really exist, so I never went all in on it. But now, I actually can. I'll start breaking down everything into components, sorting walls by size, width, and style, and saving them as individual blueprints. Now, I can just grab pieces from the Axiom menu and snap together entire structures. Some parts, like roofs and decor, don't break down as cleanly, but I can still clean them up and make them easy to reuse. Behold, they are done. I never knew it would be so beautiful. Yeah, don't mind him. He gets emotional over the stupidest stuff. Alright, now that the system's ready, time to put it to the test. I want to see if these assets actually make a difference, so I'm going to run a few time tests. 3 builds, 3 time limits. Test 1, we're going to go for 20 minutes. And start. Okay, not bad. It's a little messy, but for 20 minutes, I'll take it. I can always clean it up later. Alright, let's push it a little further. Shorter time, smaller build. Alright, time's up, and yeah, that went pretty well. Going smaller helped out a lot. Everything feels cleaner and more organized. For the last test, I'm going to give myself a full day. Not 24 straight hours, just a relaxed work session. All in all, I think I spent about 6 hours on this. This one's less about speed, more about understanding how these pieces actually work together. I can spend time refining and adapting them, building new assets out of old ones. Yeah, that was definitely worth it. This one stands on its own, feels unique, and gives me even more pieces to work with. Now that I've got the system down, let's speed things up. I'm guessing you're getting pretty tired of watching me do this over and over. So I just skipped to the end. I think we've got enough at this point. We're gonna need something for the next interior. Let's see. Big and open. Aha! This one. Perfect. Let's turn this into the chart room. For all intents and purposes, Molzeros is a ship. A massive, slow-moving one, but still a ship. Its route affects everything in the upper city. Weather, trade, even day-to-day life. So, those decisions don't fall to just one person. They all happen here, in the Corsair chart room. At the center of the room, I built a massive magical map. It shifts in real time based on the turtle's position. The whole thing's made out of stone and sand, so geomancers can reshape it on the fly. And yes, I know what you're thinking, they are not earthbenders. They just control rocks. It's totally different. Around the edges, I added in some tiered seating for the leaders of Pyrelis' most powerful crews. This is basically their council chamber, so it needs a lot of seating. Once the main layout's in, I'll finish out the structure. Rafters, balconies, all the smaller details. These elements aren't really the first things that you think about, but they're what make the space feel complete. After that, Rail jumped in for a final decoration pass, and yeah, he definitely didn't roast my booth designs. He did. Alright, that turned out great, and honestly, it came together pretty fast. I've got another interior planned, but I want to give it some more space. So first, let's place these buildings. I'm going to start by placing the full cloud cradle in, then expand the rest of the city out from there. But I'm not going to lie, this is going to be rough. Just like the Undercity, placing builds on this terrain is a nightmare, because houses are supposed to sit on flat ground, and this is very much not flat. If a build clips even slightly into the terrain, suddenly the interior is filled with a bunch of garbage blocks. Yuck. So here's the fix. I'll fill the entire interior with a placeholder block. Usually I go with the magenta wool. That way I can paste it anywhere, remove the wool, and keep the interior clean. Alright, I'm about a day in, and yeah, we might have a little too much house. Don't get me wrong, that's the goal, but if it's all houses, everything starts blending together. Gets kinda boring. So I'll pull a few out and make space for some points of interest. Something to break up the repetition. On the right side, I'll add in some balconies and platforms. This will give me room for things like markets, docks, public places. These are going to be open air forges. It'll add some contrast and make the area feel more alive. Plus, the pirates need somewhere to maintain their gear. On the left, I'll carve into the shell and terrace it out. This feels like a good spot for something a little more natural. Some greenery would go a long way here. Inside that terraced area, I'm also going to add in a lava waterfall. A lava fall. I'll block out the space, drop in the lava, and then retexture the terrain. That's looking way better. Now that I've got some variety in here, I can go back and add some more of the Cloud Cradle assets. This custom work takes longer, but it's worth it. I'm not just pasting a village here, I'm treating this whole thing like one massive build. Oh, there it is. That's exactly what I was worried about. See this? I dug a little too deep into the shell, and now I'm hitting the undercity ceiling. Those blue blocks? Yeah, that's the sky. Alright, just carefully patch that up. Perfect. Okay, gotta be a little bit more careful. Originally, I was thinking I could put some farmland back here, but honestly, space is already super limited. Turning half the city into farmland, it just doesn't make sense. I think I just want an excuse to add some green, because right now, it's very orange and very brown. After dealing with the front side, I'm going to change my approach. Instead of placing the houses first, I'm going to build some platforms, then add houses on top. This way, buildings don't have to conform to the shell as much, and I get way more freedom with placement. Alright, first pass is done, but we've got the same issue as before. There's still a lot of houses. The platforms help, but everything still feels a bit one note. Let's shake things up. Alright, this one hurts a little bit. I'm gonna have to tear out some of the platforms I placed earlier. I hate deleting work, but I've got a better idea. I want to mix in some Undercity influence, so I'll add a Dwarven-style platform as a nod to what's below. Instead of building it from scratch, I'll just grab an old asset, like this stone disc from Wraithra, and rework it into something more Dwarven. Alright, there we go, way better. Now I can drop these in around the area, and just like that, I've got some solid plaza foundations. Let's fill them out. You'd think placing houses would be simple at this point. It's not. Every weird gap I run into, I always end up building something new to fill it. The assets help, a lot, but this is still way more involved than a normal city paste. I've probably built 20 extra houses during this phase alone. Normally, this process only takes me a couple days, but I've been working for 2 weeks at this point. Alright, that took forever, but the city's finally in. Time to finally move on to interior. Uh-oh. Okay, new problem. From the main angle, it looks great. But if I move over here, yeah, this side's pretty freaking empty. That's not gonna work. So I'm gonna go back in and add an entirely new district along the lower port side of the shell. This area is going to be more residential, whereas the upper portions are closer to more shops and services. These are a little bit more out of the way. Think of them as the pirate suburbs. Alright, that's looking a lot better. I think we're finally done placing houses. Don't worry about this empty center spot, I've got plans for that. Actually, this house right here, not really loving it. I think we can make something better. That shape works way better. It's not going to stay lime wool, don't worry. We still have to build what's going here. Embedded directly into Molzaros's shell is a massive golem core called the Helmstone. This enormous molten gemstone acts as the control center for the entire golem. With small adjustments to its runes, it can control direction, speed, even positioning. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Watch, I'll paste it perfect first try. First try! It's pretty exposed for being so valuable, but it can't really be moved. It generates so much heat that storing it anywhere else would be catastrophic. If they put it in the Undercity, where it makes sense, the whole place would turn into an oven. Sure, they've got the cooling spells that keeps the lava manageable, but this is way beyond that limit. So instead, they build around it, adding heat sinks to pull excess energy away, just to keep it stable. With the Helmstone in and the houses placed, I'll start adding some greenery. Right now, everything's very orange and brown, so this is going to help break things up. I'll be adding in some more later, but even scattering a bit around now adds a lot of life to the city. Alright, that took a couple weeks, but yeah, totally worth it. This looks amazing. I'm really glad I cleaned things up as I went. Being able to actually walk through this place, super satisfying. Now that the city's fully expanded, it's time for the flagship build of the Upper City, the Driftworks. The Driftworks is a massive terrace workshop dedicated to one thing, building and maintaining Pyrelis' airships. Shipwrights aren't uncommon in this world, but these ships are different. Using advanced alchemy, Pyrelis engineers incorporate specialized stones into their ships to control movement and navigation. We'll get more into that later, but just know these things are complicated. And people at the Driftworks, they're the only ones who can make them. This space is split into 4 main areas: ship construction, ship repair, material production, and sail making. First up, the main workshop. Once the walls and floors are in, I'll start adding overhead lighting. I want this to feel industrial, and these fixtures really sell it. The main floor is where everything comes together. This is the primary shipbuilding area. I'm going to take a hole from an asset my friend Taco made for me a few videos ago. Yes, I asked. Thank you, Taco. I'll strip it down, flip it, and place it into the workshop. Then I'll just cut away part of the hole and add some ribbing, so it looks like an in-progress build. To bring it to life, I'll add some scaffolding and a few golems working around it. That movement makes a huge difference. Then I'll just fill out the rest of the space. Sawmill lines, tools, general workshop clutter. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of empty space up there. To fill it, I'm gonna build this big rock clock. Rock clock. I like that. I didn't get all the numerals perfect, but I think the idea works, and it fills that upper space pretty well. Instead of adding staircases, I decided these guys just use geomancy to move. Floating stone slabs that lift people up and down. Is it practical for survival? Not really, but is it cool? Absolutely. Alright, we've got a place to build the ships, but those materials have to come from somewhere. These airships are made from a special wood called emberwood, and it only grows on Molzaros' shell. Because of the golem's unique environment, emberwood has some very convenient properties. It's lightweight, fire resistant, and insanely strong. Like, the strongest timber in the world strong, and it grows fast. A sapling can become a full-size tree in a matter of weeks. Basically, it's bamboo on steroids. They might look like pine trees, but I didn't really feel like building more trees. Built like a bajillion of them last time. Since it's so tough, it needs specialized processing, so level 2 is going to become a dedicated sawmill. I put a central opening here in the floor so logs can be lowered down to the workshop, but the rest of the floor is all milling space. At the center, I'm going to add a massive saw blade. It's made from Secrolon steel so it can actually cut through emberwood. Then, along the sides, I'll add some smaller milling stations. These are for breaking those large slabs down into usable planks. At the top of the main tower is the repair shop. This is where ships come in for maintenance. Since vessels are constantly moving in and out, I'll open up the ceiling into a large hangar. There's a canvas cover that can roll out for weather, but otherwise it stays open. Ships enter through the top and dock onto these rail systems. Think of it like a boat lift. To help guide them in, I'll add some winch systems along the sides. Even if the pilot's not perfect, these make sure nothing crashes on the way in. To finish up, Rail's gonna come in and add some finishing touches. Alright, that wraps up the main tower, but we've got one more section. We've got the ships, but now we need the sails. Across the alley is a dedicated production space for sail sheet. I did a bit of research, and I found out that sails are made from something called sailcloth, historically woven on looms. So that's exactly what we're gonna do here. At the center of this space, I'm gonna build the largest loom I can fit. This one's gonna handle the largest sheets of sailcloth. Along the windows, I'll add some smaller looms for more detailed work. There's smaller sails, balloons, and all kinds of components that need that precision. To finish it off, I'll add some hanging fabric rolls, then hand it off to Rail for the final polish. And just like that, the Driftworks is complete. I wasn't totally sure how this one was going to turn out, but I think it came out great. Now that we've built the ship builders, let's make some airships. I've already got a ton of designs that myself, FDs, and Taco built for the Brasholt fleet, and they'd fit perfectly here. But I don't want to just drop in old builds and call it done. That's boring. These ships need to feel like they belong to Pyrelis. So instead, I'll take those old designs and remix them. I got the go-ahead from Taco and D's, and I got to work. Pyrelis airships combine both fire and earth-near abilities. The fire-near handle the lift, using hot air balloons. And yeah, I know, Avatar did it first, but here's where it gets interesting. The earth-near control movement. Throughout the ship, I added these key anchor points, filled with stone ballasts, or in some cases, a large stone mounted on a track beneath the ship. But these aren't just weights, they're steering systems. Since the earth-near specialize in alchemy, they can alter the properties of the stone itself. If they change the material to an element that's more dense, they can make it heavier or lighter at will. By shifting that weight in real time, they control the ship's movement with insane precision, which makes these ships ridiculously maneuverable. It takes some serious coordination between pilot and co-pilot, but Pyrelis is home to the best. Okay, yeah, these turned out way better than I expected. You see a lot of crazy airship designs online, but giving them a reason to look like that just makes them so much cooler. I made a few quick variations, swapping materials, tweaking the colors, and then I'll save them as schematics. And boom, like 40 new airships. Now that we've got all of these, where am I gonna put all of them? Sure, they can dock in the sky, but there's not much room on the shell itself, so I'm gonna need some more space. Right now, this city is wide open. In a world full of flying ships, that's a problem. So I came up with a solution. A ring of floating boulders surrounding the entire golem. Part defense system, part barrier. If enemy ships get too close, the near can, well, yeah, they basically earthbend them out of the sky. To start the ring, I'll sketch out a guide ring using red wool, just to map where everything is gonna go. Once that's set, I'll hop into Axiom and start shaping the rocks. And my buddy Arcaniax just gave me a new tool to play with. There's this feature from Archeon called the Boulder Brush. It creates these really nice organic rock shapes. But now he's built it directly into Axiom. I can set dimensions, preview it as a hologram, rotate it, tweak it, then place it exactly where I want. This is gonna make things so much easier. These islands aren't just for defense, they also add usable space, more docking points for ships, and room for crops, keeping Pyrelis supplied even when raids are slow. Alright, I think that's a solid base for the shaping. Now that the boulders are in place, I can start carving in runes and alchemical symbols. I already built out most of the alchemical periodic table a few videos back, and since this city uses the same magic, it fits perfectly here. To break things up even further, I'll add in some smaller fragmented pieces of stone. These smaller formations will serve as anti-aircraft defense. The larger islands are a lot more permanent, so having expendable ammunition is important. That's looking pretty good. Now for the finishing touches. These small details go a long way. It makes everything feel aged and integrated instead of just pasted. Once it's done, I'll start adding in some of the airships from earlier. That really pulls the whole scene together. I had a gut feeling something was missing from this build for months, and this was it. Alright, one last task, and it's a big one. Street decor across the entire topside city. Here we go again. Before I start placing anything, I'll make a few new assets specific to the topside. Things like weather balloons, signal horns, cleats and anchors, and mooring posts. Stuff that really sells the airship port vibe. Alright, those look pretty good. Time to start pasting. This is always my favorite part of the build. This is where it actually starts to feel real. Cleanup makes it look good, but street deco, that's what makes it feel alive. It literally forces me down to the ground level and actually have to think about how people move through the space. Like right here, I'll add a small green space out here just to break things up. Right in the center, I'll build a watchtower and add a little telescope. Yeah, that reads. But standing watch all day, it's gotta be pretty miserable. To keep them entertained, I'll add in some extras. Stuff like a dartboard, pool table, and lounge space. Still functional, but way more livable. Over here, I'll expand the market area with some more merchant booths, filling out the space and making it feel busy. This is where it starts to get tricky. These walkways feel empty, but there's barely any space to work with. So I'll go in by hand, adding small details like crates, candles, plants, and cobwebs. Nothing too flashy, but it makes a huge difference. Not everyone here has a home. A lot of these pirates just live on their ships and are just passing through. So right here is an example of a temporary camp, just a place to crash for the night. This area just feels like a forge, so I'll lean into it, adding in fires, anvils, workbenches, and water buckets. Near the center, I'll spruce this up with a maintenance and observation area for the helmstone. Nice. Back to work. This section seems like a dock, so I'm going to turn it into a storage and repair zone. Things like cargo piles, transport golems, all that good stuff. Over on the left, we'll put some more forge space. It'll get the same treatment as the ones below, just reinforcing that industrial feel. Alright, sweet. I've got the entire front side completely done and dusted. Only took 4 days. Ah, God. How the back? There's an entire back. Okay, we got this. One last push. Thankfully, this will go a lot faster from all the practice on the front. That said, there's so much area to cover here that I'm kind of getting stumped on what to add. I think I'll tuck in a dedicated golem repair area. Seems like it works here. I was running out of ideas, so Rail jumped in and added a few finishing touches, including a very passionate golem sermon setup. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And with that, the street deco is done. This place finally feels alive. After months of building, there's only one thing left to do. Step back and see if it was all worth it. Honestly, this is probably the craziest build I've ever made. There's a front side, back side, exterior, interior. This thing was basically 2 or 3 cities smashed into one. But every time, I do try to top the last project. I think this one cleared the bar. I hope. Huge thanks to Nighty, Rail, and JP for helping bring this project to life. And most importantly, thank you for watching.